Welcome to the Chris Hanna Show. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Here at the Chris Hanna Show, one thing that we've talked a lot about is productivity. Now, when I talk about productivity, I'm talking about obviously trying to become more efficient, more effective overall with your life, improving your overall impact and your ultimate performance. But the thing I think that's really important to note about productivity is when I'm talking about it, it doesn't just mean getting quicker, faster at doing things. It's ultimately about becoming a different version of yourself. I call it the next level version of yourself. See, the more that you grow, the more that you change, the more that you continue to evolve, the more effective, more productive you're going to be. And when you're more productive, ultimately you're going to be happier. When you're happy, you're going to be more fulfilled. So today's episode is not about productivity. Today's episode is really about change. You see, on the other side of change, or even a challenge that might lead to change, is your other self. It's your future version of who you are meant to become. The person that you maybe aspire to be, but for whatever reason have not been able to become yet. The person who is going to outlast the temporary challenges that you're faced and overcome adversity, overcome those moments of self-doubt where you can ultimately become who you're meant to be. See, I believe that every single person is born for greatness. We're all meant to do something. The problem is a lot of people haven't found what they're meant to do yet. Part of the reason that they haven't found it is they haven't been putting themselves out there and trying to figure out what they are ultimately meant to do. But it is complicated. It is tough. It is challenging to put yourself out there, to try different things and sometimes fail. No one likes to fail. No one wants to try something and to have it not work out. There's obviously the fear of being judged, being perceived a certain way. It's tricky. And unfortunately, a lot of people are scared. But again, they forget or they fail to realize that on the other side of change or any sort of challenge that you're facing is your other self. That next level version of who you are meant to become. See, the world needs you. They need your talents, unique as they are to you. They need your strengths. They need your skills. They need your experiences. People need to have you in their lives. There's somebody out there that is touched by you, that is impacted by you. But if you don't put yourself out there, if you aren't willing to try to get to become that person that you're meant to become, no one's going to know about you. You're never going to have the success that you want. And for those who are longtime listeners of this show know, I define success as ultimately being happy. The truth is this, is that no one is invested in your career or your life more than you. It's not selfish to say that. It might sound selfish, but you have to be yourself. You have to be the person that you are meant to become. Don't try to be the next whoever. Ultimately, you just got to be the next you. You have to be yourself. A number of years back, feels like now a different time for myself, in a different career, I had some of my staff ask me the question who I wanted to be. And before I could even answer, someone answered this one person that I had seen at conferences quite a bit, and they said, "You want to be like this person." And I said, "You couldn't be more wrong. I don't want to be like someone else. I want to be me. I want to be myself." See, I can go and I can attend conferences and events. I can go and speak elsewhere. I can have this podcast. I can help people and coach. But I pick up a lot of ideas along the way, but I'm not trying to mimic anyone else. I'm trying to ultimately be myself. Be the version of me that I'm meant to be. A long time ago, I came to this realization that if I'm living someone else's vision of who I'm meant to be, I'm going to be pretty unhappy. Ultimately, what was required is I needed to pick a direction. I needed to go for it. I needed to decide where life took me. that led me to start to invest in myself, which again, I think is the best investment you're ever going to make is in yourself. But I realized is that I needed to continue to evolve, to innovate, to create, to be the person that I'm meant to be, the person that I'm always chasing, that future version of myself. I'm going to try a lot of different things, and I'll tell you, over the years I did. But if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have grown into the person that I am now, or the person that I'm eventually going to be, again, on the other side of that change. We don't know what happens in the future. As much as we might sometimes think that we do, or hope that we do, we don't know truly. And you can never really connect the dots along the journey until you look back over what has happened. Me getting to where I am today as a CEO of a company, as someone who continually tries to provide value for people in the both productivity space and as a person who advocates for strong leadership, I didn't know I would ever get to where I am today. But as I look back on the journey, I can see it all happened for a reason. You see, I started my career a long time ago, it now feels. And it was in the retail space. And I had wanted always to be a leader. And I never formally applied to become a leader of any sort, but I naturally just evolved into that position. And I was leading a home electronics department while I was still in high school. And I absolutely loved it. I actually probably worked more for free than I actually did in terms of getting paid, because just the hours and the time and the effort that I put in. But what I did with that department is I really turned it around, and I focused a lot on training and development. It became this place where I just was so proud of the work that I had done, but I was more proud of the fact that I saw the team and the results continue to evolve and change. Then in time, I went to university, and throughout university, I went through various different versions of who I was. I worked some retail, but then throughout school, I also found the opportunity to become a career advisor. And that really opened my eyes to the possibilities of helping others make an impact. I was helping people with career advice, interview techniques, how to polish up their resume. And it was incredibly fulfilling to see fellow students and alumni grow and evolve their careers and go after that first job that they're ultimately looking for. I also spent some time throughout university learning that I can make money through different means. I don't talk about it much, but I did spend a year where I was able to be a professional, I'd say semi-professional maybe, gambler. And by that I mean I was able to play poker quite a bit. I would go and play online. Back in the day, this is during the poker heyday, where I really learned some skills, and I'd make $1,000 a day, or I'd lose $1,000 a day. But ultimately, it was enough for me to continue to pay my way through university and ultimately have some fun along the way. And to this very day, I use my poker skills quite a bit. The ability to read people, read situations, but I needed to go through that in order to use those skills elsewhere. Eventually, after graduating from university, I took a job in the rental car business. And I tell you, it was my backup job. I got the job in January, started in May. I never intended to actually start, though. My thought was, I'll at least have a guaranteed job coming out, but I'll continue to look for other jobs. But I'm not going to lie, I got lazy. I got complacent. And I never really pulled the trigger elsewhere because I already had the job lined up. And I thought I'll go in, work for a little bit, gain some experience, and eventually maybe go back to school, get my MBA or something. And so I ended up working there, and I was not, obviously, for those who really know me, not happy as I worked in the rental car business. It wasn't for me. But I learned a lot. I learned how to run a business. I learned how to make branches profitable, turn their customer service and satisfaction around, generate revenue, focus on sales, building up relationships, the importance of supply and demand. I learned a lot over 4.5 years. I became branch manager of the year. Then the challenge obviously happened of losing that job. Go from branch manager of the year to unemployed within a short time span. I was not ready for it. I didn't see it coming. But when it happened, it was crippling at the time. But I didn't know at that moment that, again, on the other side of change or a challenge is your other self. It's the next version of who you're meant to become. So it was tough to go from being up so high to starting over. But again, I didn't know at the time, and I didn't know until years later when I look back, that it was one of the best things that ever happened to me. So I go from that to working in electronics again, selling TVs, going back to what I'd done almost 10 years earlier. Now, TVs had changed a lot during that time, but I was doing it part-time while looking for full-time work. The challenge being, at the time, the economy was struggling hard. And in the city that I happened to live in at the time, it was really hard to prove to somebody that I wasn't going to just step in and leave, because my resume showed that I had lots of sales experience, lots of management experience in particular, and I was very successful. So I worked part-time and got some full-time hours here and there, kind of working in this electronics spot. I applied for a lot of different jobs, but I think the fear of an environment being similar to the rental car business scared me. So I turned down a lot of opportunities. I didn't find full-time work officially until 8 months later. And I started then in a completely different industry, in the IT connectivity industry. And it was a space that I was very unfamiliar with, definitely not passionate about. And I had to, unfortunately, start at the bottom. Now, I lasted there for almost 10 years and had lots of success throughout that time. But again, it was not the space where I was passionate, but I learned a lot. I became a different version of myself again. In 2018, I attended some conferences, and I attended conferences over the years before that too, but I'd always sat and looked and saw somebody on stage and said, I could do that. I could speak at this conference, but I never pulled the trigger. But in 2018, I finally asked myself this one powerful question. What would I regret not doing? And I looked at it from my career perspective. What would I regret not doing in my career? And one of the things I wanted to do was speak at a conference. So what did I do? As I actually applied to speak at a conference, and I put all this time and effort into my slideshow and the presentation, and knew exactly what I was going to do. And I thought, at least I've done it. I've tried. And it didn't work out. They didn't select me. I didn't know at the time, but that was one of the best things that ever not happened for me. Because truthfully, I wasn't ready. But what it did lead is to someone seeing that presentation and deciding to take a chance on me. Give me the opportunity to be a feature contributor, to start to write and share. And I never thought about writing. But I started writing. And then I started to realize, after reading some more books in this entrepreneurial space, I need to get back to who I want to become. So it became writing and recording videos and starting eventually this podcast and starting to produce courses and content and coach virtually. And doing that on the side as well, in addition to working full time. I evolved into a different type of person as well. Someone who wanted more, but also saw things from a different perspective. I saw different possibilities for a future that would exist, not only for me, but for others. I had advocated early on the importance of workplace flexibility, allowing people to work when, where, and how they're most effective. Having talks on that. Getting the chance to go and speak at events, both in person and virtually. Mostly throughout the States, whether it was Florida, Chicago, Vegas, Washington, D.C., getting the opportunity to connect and share messages around the importance of leadership and the employee experience. And it was incredibly powerful and incredibly fun to do. And I absolutely loved doing it. And before I knew it, I continued to grow and evolve and gain all this experience. But if I didn't put myself out there, I never would have done so. And then the opportunity came up to apply for the company Cashflow Tribe. And it was a VP of Operations role. Now, I'm not going to lie, I did not understand truly what the company was all about. But I applied anyways. And the reason I applied is that they said they wanted a video as opposed to a resume. They wanted a video to highlight why I thought I'd be the best fit for their position. While I didn't fully get it in terms of visiting the website or looking at some of the social media of what they did, I could tell there was something there, so I applied to the role. produced a video, and going through the process, it worked out, and I took on the role of VP of Operations. Before we knew it, 6 months later, I was now the CEO of the company. And we've continued to evolve and innovate within the company. Yeah, there's been challenges along the way, like there always is with leading a business. But I've grown and developed in so many different ways, becoming the better version of myself than I've ever been in terms of being just a leader. I've learned a lot, and I've made a ton of mistakes throughout my career, but I've taken those mistakes and really learned from them and been able to apply them to new situations that continue to pop up now as CEO of another company. It's amazing how much you can do when you start to put yourself out there and you try something different. Who knows where the future goes with any of us? But you can only create a compelling future version of yourself when you try something different, when you try to grow, when you try to change. I'll end with this. When I was a kid, I was pulled from the bottom of a pool. After going through that traumatic experience, I was always terrified of swimming. I never wanted to put myself out there. I would see friends and family all enjoy swimming, and whether it's swimming in the lake, swimming in a pool, they would all be out there splashing around in the deep end where I just hung out in the shallow end. And I think that's just a metaphor that I've really started to realize in the last couple of years, is that you can't really push yourself and grow and ultimately have the fun that you want if you just float in the shallow end the whole time. Yes, there are traumatic experiences. There are challenges that are going to happen throughout your life and career. But again, on the other side of a challenge or change is going to be your next level version of yourself. But sometimes you got to put yourself into the deep end. You have to put yourself through a challenge, an opportunity to grow, to develop, ultimately to have the success that you want, and more importantly, the life that you want. If I didn't put myself into the situations that I have throughout my career, if I haven't had bad things happen and things that are beyond my control happen, if I haven't pushed myself and others to try and succeed and reach certain results, I never would have the life that I have now, where I've got a beautiful home, I'm able to travel, able to have a lot of flexibility, being able to do what I want, when I want, where I want. It took time to get to where I am today, and it's a journey, and where I get to tomorrow and beyond that, no one knows. But one thing I do know is that I never would have got there if I didn't embrace change. I didn't try to overcome challenges to unlock that next level version of myself. All right, that's it for this week's episode of The Chris Hanna Show. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And as always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe for future episodes. It helps us grow, helps us get more of the message out, and ultimately, it's going to help other listeners grow as well. And that's ultimately what we're all here to do, is to help others have the type of life and impact that they want, improving their performance and their productivity to become the next level version of themselves. All right, thanks everyone.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Chris Hanna Show. As always, the latest episodes are available to listen and subscribe to on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also follow The Chris Hanna Show on LinkedIn, Instagram, or Twitter. For more resources and solutions, including blog posts, toolkits, ebooks, speaking sessions, and more, visit chrishanna.ca today. We look forward to connecting again with you soon for another episode of The Chris Hanna Show.